You didn't choose your birth date randomly. The moment you took your first breath, the universe stamped you with a code. Not the kind you type into a keypad. A vibrational code. A frequency signature encoded in the numbers of the day you arrived. And those numbers aren't decoration. They're not coincidence. They're coordinates. Temporal coordinates marking the exact point in time when your consciousness entered this dimension. And just like geographic coordinates tell you where something is located in space, your birth date tells you where you're positioned in the cycles of time. And position matters. Because time isn't linear. It's cyclical. And every cycle carries a specific energy, a specific lesson, a specific frequency. And the day you were born placed you within a particular cycle. And that cycle has been shaping your experience ever since. Most people treat their birth date like a formality. Something to put on forms. Something to celebrate once a year. But the ancients understood that numbers are more than quantities. They're frequencies. Each number vibrates at a specific rate. And that vibration influences everything it touches. This is why sacred geometry works. Why certain mathematical ratios appear throughout nature. Why the universe seems to speak in numbers. Because numbers aren't human inventions. They're discoveries. Patterns woven into the fabric of reality itself. And your birth date, composed of numbers, is a pattern, a code. And that code, when decoded, reveals information about who you are, why you're here, and what you came to master. But before you dismiss this as numerology dressed up in mysticism, understand that numbers govern everything. Physics is numbers. Chemistry is numbers. Biology is numbers. Your DNA is a numerical code. 4 bases arranged in specific sequences, generating the instructions for building a human being. And if your biological code is numerical, why wouldn't your temporal code be numerical as well? The universe operates on pattern, on structure, on law, and one of those laws is that nothing is random. Your birth date isn't random. It's precise. And precision implies intention. And intention implies meaning. So the question isn't whether your birth date carries meaning. The question is whether you're going to learn to read it. The code works through reduction. You take the numbers of your birth date and reduce them to single digits. Not because single digits are magical. Because single digits represent archetypal energies. Pure frequencies. The number 1 isn't just a quantity. It's the energy of initiation, beginning, independence, leadership. The number 2 isn't just counting. It's the energy of duality, partnership, balance, harmony. And this continues through 9, each number carrying a distinct quality, a distinct vibration. And when you reduce your birth date to its core numbers, you reveal the primary frequencies you're here to work with. Not as destiny, as inclination, as the currents you'll naturally swim in unless you consciously choose otherwise. And here's what most people miss. Your birth date isn't one number. It's multiple numbers working together. The day you were born, the month, the year, each carries its own frequency. And together, they form a signature, a harmonic. And that harmonic is unique to you. No one else in history, present or future, will have the exact same combination of frequencies unless they share your exact birth date. And even then, the way those frequencies express will be influenced by location, lineage, choices. But the core pattern, the foundational code, that's set. And it's been influencing you since day one. shaping your preferences, your challenges, your natural strengths. The lessons life keeps repeating until you finally learn them. But the code isn't a cage. It's a map. It doesn't tell you what you must do. It tells you what you're naturally inclined toward. And when you work with your inclinations instead of against them, life becomes easier. Not effortless. Easier. Because you're moving with your design instead of forcing yourself into someone else's. Most people spend decades trying to be something they're not because they were told that's what success looks like. And they wonder why it feels so hard, why they're exhausted, why achievement doesn't satisfy. It's because they're fighting their code. They're trying to run programs they weren't designed to run. And that creates friction. Internal conflict. And conflict, sustained over time, creates suffering. But when you understand your code, when you see the frequencies you carry, you can stop fighting and start flowing. And flow is where power lives. The universe didn't give you this code to confuse you. It gave it to you as a gift, a shortcut, a way to understand yourself faster than trial and error alone would allow. And the code is accessible. You don't need a guru. You don't need special tools. You just need your birth date and the willingness to look at the numbers not as math but as language. Because that's what they are. A language the universe speaks fluently. And once you learn to speak it, even a little, you gain access to information most people never find. Not because it's hidden, because they never thought to look. Your birth date has 3 primary components: the day, the month, the year, and each one reveals a different layer of your code. The day is your expression, how you show up in the world, the face you present, the energy others feel when they encounter you. The month is your emotional undercurrent, the driving force beneath your actions, the motivation that fuels your choices even when you're not aware of it. And the year is your path, the overarching theme of your life, the lesson you're here to integrate. And together, these 3 numbers form a triad, a structure. And structure, as you know, is stability. So understanding all 3 gives you a stable foundation for navigating your life with clarity instead of confusion. Let's start with the day. Take the day you were born and reduce it to a single digit. If you were born on the 27th, add 2 plus 7. That's 9. 9 is your day number. If you were born on the 5th, your day number is 5. Simple. And that number represents your surface energy, the frequency you broadcast most naturally in day-to-day interactions. If your day number is 1, you're naturally independent. You lead. You initiate. You don't wait for permission. If your day number is 2, you're naturally collaborative. You harmonize. You mediate. You feel the imbalances between people and instinctively work to correct them. If your day number is 3, you're naturally expressive. You create. You communicate. You bring ideas into form through words, art, or action. And this pattern continues through 9, each number carrying its own distinct energy. Now the month. Your birth month, when reduced, reveals your emotional core, the engine driving your external expression. If you were born in October, that's the 10th month. 1 plus 0 is equal to 1. 1 is your month number, and that tells you that beneath your surface expression, there's a drive for independence, for self-sufficiency, for standing alone. Even if your day number is 2, which seeks partnership, your month number being 1 means you need autonomy within that partnership. You'll struggle in relationships where you lose yourself, because your emotional drive is towards self-reliance. This is why understanding both day and month numbers is critical, because they often create tension. And tension, when unrecognized, creates internal conflict. But when recognized, it creates depth, complexity, the ability to hold multiple truths simultaneously. Then there's the year. Your birth year reduced to a single digit reveals your life path, the overarching frequency you're here to master. This is not your destiny in the sense of a fixed outcome. It's the curriculum you enrolled in. The theme life will keep presenting until you integrate it. If your life path number is 4, you're here to build, to create structures, to master discipline, routine, foundation. Life will repeatedly test your ability to commit, to follow through, to create stability. If your life path number is 7, you're here to seek truth, to question, to go deep. Life will repeatedly pull you inward, into solitude, into contemplation, into the search for meaning beneath surface appearances. And if you resist your life path, if you try to avoid the lessons it brings, life will get louder. The same situations will repeat. The same patterns will emerge, until you finally turn and face what you came here to learn. But here's the key. These numbers don't dictate your choices. They reveal your inclinations, your defaults. And defaults can be overridden. But overriding requires awareness. You can't change a pattern you don't see. So the first step is always recognition. What are my numbers? What do they mean? And once you know, you ask the next question. Am I working with these frequencies or against them? Because working with them creates flow. Working against them creates friction. And most suffering is just unrecognized friction. You're trying to be something your code isn't designed for. And the code isn't wrong. Your expectation is. Your conditioning is. The stories you were told about who you should be. But when you release those stories and align with your actual design, life doesn't become perfect. But it becomes yours. Authentic. And authenticity is the foundation of all sustainable success. There's also the matter of master numbers. 11, 22, 33. These don't reduce. They're considered higher octaves. Intensified frequencies. If your reduction lands on one of these, you're working with amplified energy. More potential, but also more challenge. Because higher frequencies demand more from you. More awareness. More integrity. More alignment. You can't coast on a master number. You either rise to it or you get crushed by it. And most people with master numbers spend the first half of their life feeling overwhelmed, scattered, like they don't fit anywhere. Because they're operating at a frequency most people can't match. But once they understand what they're carrying, once they learn to work with the intensity instead of being burned by it, they become forces. Not because they're better, because they're aligned with the voltage they were given. Each number from 1 to 9 carries a distinct archetypal energy. And understanding these archetypes is how you decode your birth date. Because your numbers aren't just digits. They're descriptors. They're telling you which frequencies you're here to embody, to master, to express. And when you understand the energy of each number, you can look at your birth date and see not just numbers but a blueprint. A map of your internal landscape. And maps, when read correctly, prevent you from getting lost. 1 is the pioneer, the leader, the initiator, If you carry strong 1 energy, you're not designed to follow. You're designed to forge new paths, to stand alone, to trust yourself even when no one else does. But the shadow of 1 is isolation, the belief that you must do everything yourself, that asking for help is weakness. And if you've struggled with loneliness, with the feeling that no one understands you, it's because you haven't balanced one's independence with the recognition that even leaders need support. The mastery of 1 is learning to lead without alienating, to initiate without dominating, to stand alone without being lonely. 2 is the diplomat, the connector, the bridge. If you carry 2 energy, you're acutely sensitive to disharmony. You feel when things are out of balance, and your instinct is to restore equilibrium. But the shadow of 2 is codependence, the loss of self in service of others, the belief that your value comes from being needed. And if you felt drained, resentful, taken for granted, it's because you've been giving from depletion instead of overflow. The mastery of 2 is learning to harmonize without disappearing, to give without losing yourself, to connect without merging. 3 is the creator, the communicator, the artist. If 3 is strong in your code, you're here to express, to bring the invisible into form, through words, art, ideas, movement. You think in images, you feel in metaphors, and when you're blocked from creating, when life demands you suppress your expression, you wither. The shadow of 3 is scattered energy, starting 10 projects and finishing none, talking about creating instead of actually creating. The mastery of 3 is learning to focus your creative energy, to finish what you start, to channel your expression into forms that impact instead of dissipate. 4 is the builder, the foundation, the structure. If you carry 4 energy, you're here to create stability, to take chaos and organize it, to turn vision into tangible reality. You're practical, grounded, reliable. But the shadow of 4 is rigidity, the fear of change, the belief that if the structure cracks, everything collapses. The mastery of 4 is learning that structures serve growth, not stagnation, that sometimes foundations must be dismantled to make room for expansion, that flexibility is strength, not weakness. 5 is the freedom seeker, the adventurer, the disruptor. If 5 dominates your code, you're not designed for routine. You're designed for variety, for movement, for exploration. You resist cages. You break patterns. And if your life has felt like a series of sudden changes, of things falling apart just when they seemed stable, it's not bad luck. It's 5 energy demanding movement. The shadow of 5 is recklessness, change for the sake of change, running from commitment. The mastery of 5 is learning to ride change consciously instead of being whiplashed by it, to find freedom within structure instead of believing structure is the enemy. 6 is the nurturer, the healer, the caretaker. If 6 is strong, you feel responsible for others. You see suffering and move toward it. You create harmony in spaces. But the shadow of 6 is martyrdom, the belief that your worth is tied to how much you sacrifice. The mastery of 6 is learning to give from fullness, to fill your own cup first, to recognize that sustainable service requires self-care, not self-abandonment. 7 is the seeker, the mystic, the analyst. If 7 is in your code, you're here to question, to dig beneath surfaces, to find truth. You're introspective, often solitary. But the shadow of 7 is isolation, the belief that no one can understand you. The mastery of 7 is learning that wisdom is meant to be shared, that seeking doesn't require solitude, that connection deepens understanding instead of diluting it. 8 is power, manifestation, material mastery. If 8 is strong, you're here to create impact, to wield influence, to move resources and people. But the shadow of 8 is the obsession with control. The belief that if you don't dominate, you'll be dominated. The mastery of 8 is realizing that true power is not over others but over the self, that influence born from integrity lasts while manipulation collapses. 9 is completion, the humanitarian, the elder. If you carry 9, you're here to serve the collective, to bring wisdom, to close cycles. But the shadow of 9 is the inability to let go, the clinging to what's already complete. The mastery of 9 is learning that endings are not failures but transformations, that letting go creates space for new beginnings, that completion is a gift, not a loss. Your birth date doesn't just define a static frequency. It places you within cycles, personal cycles that repeat every 9 years. And these cycles govern the themes you encounter, the opportunities that surface, the challenges that test you. Most people experience these cycles unconsciously. They feel the shifts but don't understand the pattern. And because they don't understand, they resist. They try to hold onto the energy of a cycle that's ending, or they rush into a cycle that hasn't fully arrived. And the friction creates confusion, frustration, the feeling that life is working against them. But when you understand the cycles encoded in your birth date, you stop resisting and start flowing. You recognize which phase you're in and you align your actions accordingly. And alignment, as always, is where ease lives. The personal year cycle is calculated by adding your birthday and month to the current year. Let's say you were born March 15th and the current year is 2025. March is 3. The day is 15, which reduces to 6. Add them. 3 plus 6 is equal to 9. Then add the current year. 9 plus 2025 is equal to 2034. Reduce. 2 plus 0 plus 3 plus 4 is equal to 9. You're in a personal year 9. And each year from 1 to 9 carries a specific energy, a specific focus. And the events of that year, while they may seem random, are actually aligned with the cycle you're in. Not by cosmic coincidence, by vibrational resonance. The frequency you're in attracts experiences that match it. A personal year 1 is new beginnings, initiation, planting seeds. If you're in a 1 year, this is not the time to wait. This is the time to start what you've been postponing, to step into the new identity you've been afraid to claim. The energy supports bold moves. But if you hesitate, if you wait for perfect conditions, you miss the window. Because one energy doesn't last. It's a doorway, and doorways close. A personal year 2 is relationships and partnerships. Slower than 1. More introspective. This is the year to collaborate, to build alliances, to nurture connections. If you're forcing solo projects, pushing for independence, you'll feel resistance. Because 2 energy is about union, not separation. The lessons that come in a 2 year are often relational. Conflicts surface not to destroy but to teach balance. A personal year 3 is creative expansion. Expression joy. If you're in a 3 year, this is the time to play. To create without pressure. to express without filter. 3 energy is light, spontaneous. And if you stay locked in obligation and duty, you miss the recalibration 3 offers. The chance to remember what joy feels like. A personal year 4 is building. Foundations. Structure. This is not a year for wild risks. This is the year to stabilize, to organize, to create systems that will support future growth. The work may feel tedious. Progress may feel slow. But this isn't stagnation. This is preparation. And the discipline you apply in a 4-year determines how solid your foundation is when the faster cycles return. Personal year 5 is change, movement, disruption. Expect the unexpected. Plans will shift. Opportunities will appear from nowhere. And what felt stable may dissolve. This is not chaos. This is 5 energy-breaking patterns, freeing you from what's become too small. The only way through a 5-year is to ride it. To say yes to the change instead of clinging to what was. A personal year 6 is responsibility. Service. Family. You'll be called to show up for others. To nurture. To heal. To create harmony. This is the year when relationships deepen, when commitments are tested. And the temptation in a 6-year is to give until you're empty. But 6 done right is giving from overflow, not depletion. A personal year 7 is introspection. Solitude. Seeking. This is not an external year. This is an internal year. You're being asked to slow down, to go inward, to question what you've been accepting without examination. 7 is the year when spiritual awakenings happen, when insights surface. But 7 requires space. And if you fill it with noise, you miss the wisdom trying to emerge. A personal year 8 is power, manifestation, achievement. The energy supports big moves. Expansion. Taking what you've built and bringing it into the world. This is the year when results show up, when efforts pay off. But 8 also tests your relationship with power. And if you use it to dominate, to control, it will collapse on you. 8 done right is wielding power with integrity. A personal year 9 is completion. Release. Letting go. Something is ending. A relationship. A job. A version of yourself. And 9 asks you to release it with grace. To honor what was and make space for what will be. 9 years are often the hardest because they require surrender. And most people resist. But 9 energy will not be negotiated with. What's complete must complete. And only by honoring the ending can you step cleanly into the new cycle that begins the following year with a personal one. Understanding your birth date code intellectually is valuable. Living it is transformative. Because knowledge without application is entertainment. And the universe doesn't reward understanding. It responds to embodiment. So the question isn't whether you know your numbers. The question is whether you're living them. Whether you're aligning your choices with the frequencies you carry. Whether you're honoring the cycles you're in. Because when you do, when you stop fighting your design and start working with it, life becomes not easier but clearer. And clarity in a world of noise is the most valuable resource you can have. Living your code means you honor your day number. If your day number is 1, you stop apologizing for your independence. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You step into leadership. Not arrogantly, naturally, because that's what you're designed for. If your day number is 6, you stop feeling guilty for caring. You stop believing that nurturing is weakness. You embrace your role as healer, caretaker, harmonizer. And you do it from overflow, not obligation. Living your code means you work with your month number. You recognize what drives you emotionally and you make decisions that honor that drive instead of suppressing it. If your month number is 4 and you crave stability, you stop chasing chaos thinking it will make you feel alive. You create routines that ground you. And you find freedom within structure instead of believing structure is the enemy. Living your code means you align with your life path number. You recognize the overarching lesson you're here to learn, and you stop resisting it. If your life path is 7 and life keeps pulling you into solitude, you stop fighting it. You embrace the introspection. You trust that the answers you're seeking will surface in the quiet. And you stop believing that solitude is loneliness. Because for a 7, solitude is sanctuary. Living your code also means you respect the personal year cycle you're in. If you're in a 1 year, you initiate. If you're in a 7 year, you reflect. You don't try to force a 1 year energy in a 7 year cycle. You don't try to introspect in a 5 year when change is demanding action. You align with the rhythm. And when you align with the rhythm, effort becomes effective. Because you're no longer rowing against the current. Living your code means you stop comparing. You stop looking at someone else's path and wondering why yours doesn't look the same. Because their code is different. Their frequencies are different. Their lessons are different. And what works for them may not work for you. Not because you're less capable. Because you're differently designed. And design determines function. And when you honor your design instead of forcing yourself into someone else's, you stop exhausting yourself trying to be something you're not. And finally, living your code means you recognize that the code is not a cage. It's a map. It shows you where you're naturally inclined. But inclination is not destiny. You still have choice. You can work with your numbers or against them, but working with them creates flow, and working against them creates friction. And most people spend their lives in friction, wondering why everything feels so hard. And the answer is simple. They're fighting their code. They're trying to run programs they weren't designed to run. And that creates internal conflict, exhaustion, the feeling that no matter how hard you try, you're not getting anywhere. But when you stop fighting and start aligning, when you look at your birth date not as a random assignment but as a blueprint, you gain access to clarity most people never find. And clarity is power. Because clarity allows you to make decisions that align with your design. And aligned decisions create aligned results. And aligned results create a life that feels like yours. Not someone else's yours. The universe didn't give you a birth date randomly. It gave you coordinates, the code, a frequency signature. And that signature has been shaping your experience since the moment you arrived. So the question is, are you going to keep living unconsciously, letting the code run in the background without understanding it? Or are you going to decode it, understand it, and use it to navigate your life with precision instead of guessing? Because the code is there. It's always been there. And now you know where to look.